Hello and welcome to Cape Ann ARTWaves. My name is Jacqueline Ganem DeFalco. Along with my co-host and co-producer Christine Fisher, on a bi-weekly basis, we dig into the interesting works and inspiration of the artists who live and work on Cape Ann. Our show is sponsored by Prince Insurance Agency, M. Christine Fisher, visual artist, the McDermott McCarthy team at Gibson Sotheby's International Realty, and the Common Crow Natural Market. So thank you to all of our generous sponsors and our partners, 1623 Studios and C Arts, and our musicians, Steve Lacey and Pat Verga. So today, our featured artist is Rokaya Waring. Welcome, Rokaya.
Thank you, Jackie.
Rokaya is an expressionist painter, according to her bio, which I'm going to share with you. She has roots on Cape Ann, and most recently, she has lived on Cape Ann, but she has a global footprint, and it's a wonderful story that we're about to hear about in a little bit. But let me just try to summarize her background for you. So Rokaya was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So right there already had a fabulous start connected to the arts, because we know Santa Fe is a great art town. And she comes from French and American parentage. Her dual nationality and extensive travel have clearly influenced her work, as well as her homeschooling. Though often considered an impressionist by people who she speaks with and who see her work, Rokaya considers herself uniquely an expressionist or a lyrical painter, in that her aim is to reveal through emotions rather than record impressions. After spending time in Paris and Florence, again, more fabulous art centers in themselves, Waring's parents settled in Rockport and founded La Petite École out of their home, now known as the Waring School. I'm going to ask Rokaya, when she starts to speak, to tell us a little bit about that. What was interesting to me, it's where she acquired the habit of visually recording the natural world. After graduating from Princeton with a BA in art history, visual arts, Rokaya spent her first summer painting in Provence in the village of Forcalquier, where she spent considerable time on and off for 20 years and watched the rugged landscape, which helped form her artistic vision. Her time traveling included Paris, Israel, Tahiti, and all around the US, and it added to her wonderful portfolio of experiences, after which she returned to Gloucester in 2008. Lived right at the top of Rocky Neck, though not for long, because now she's about to embark on another adventure to find her next home with her artist husband, Alex, and 2 whippets. Rokaya is a prolific artist, as you're about to find out. She has exhibited in over 40 solo shows, 60 invitational or juried shows in the US and France, and has won many awards. In addition to her local memberships at North Shore Arts and Rocky Neck, she's also a member of the Oil Painters of America, American Impressionist Society, and has shown at the Salon des Artistes Français, in the Salon d'Automne in Paris, and at the Courier Art Museum. Waring is featured in the 100 Artists of New England, a book by Schiffer published in 2011. And that is quite a bio, Rokaya, and I cut it in half. So now it's your turn. So obviously you've had an amazing personal and artistic journey. So when you first decided that art was going to be your path, what brought you to Cape Ann or back to Cape Ann? And I guess we just want you to sort of go back a little bit and bring us to date and fill in some of the missing pieces that I didn't talk about specifically in your bio.
Okay, I'll try to do that. Cape Ann, I grew up in Rockport, really. I didn't spend that much time in Gloucester. For me, it was just Rockport exclusively as a kid. And then when La Petite École became the Waring School, it moved to Beverly, of course. So I consider myself a North Shore girl, if you will, but I never really thought I would come back to Cape Ann. I have to kind of give credit to my husband for that, because he grew up in Florida, but his father spent many years painting and living in Gloucester. And I think that he always wanted to live in Gloucester. And we passed up a few opportunities to buy a house in Gloucester. And then one day it just so happened that there was this beautiful place right at the head of Rocky Neck, as you said, for sale. And when I came back, it was as a married woman, as an adult, and as a full-time painter. And I saw it with completely different eyes. I saw Cape Ann, Gloucester, and this particular spot in Gloucester with just a completely different eyes, and fell in love with it. And we lived there for 12 years. And I pinch myself every day when I look out the window. I think I'll always miss it.
I think we all feel that way when we wake up in the morning. But also, you didn't really have a direct path to painting in the sort of traditional sense. It sounded like you started going down a different path initially. So how did you wind up deciding specifically that you were going to be a painter?
I did. I wouldn't say it was a conscious decision. It really just happened. Of course, I always loved art. I think that was my best subject, always winning awards in painting and drawing and that sort of thing. But I never really thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do as an adult. I need to do something where you can make some money. So I also loved architecture. So I thought, okay, I'm going to apply to some colleges that have a great architecture program. And hence, Princeton has a great architecture program. But after one semester, it was just too clean and neat and tidy for me. And I missed the painting. I missed being messy, and I missed the freedom. So I switched my major to art history / visual arts.
The painting and the drawing, as we discussed a little bit in your bio, it really started early on. So I wanted you to just tell us a little bit more about that experience with the Waring School in the early days, because it sounded like that really influenced your early work, which we want to show some of your early pieces. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my early work, this is a good time to say that reflecting on what I decide to paint and what inspires me, it's really what's immediately in front of me, what's right outside my door, right outside my window, my house and garden, if you will. It's because I can become emotionally attached to those places. That's what I want to paint. It's part of me. So when I pass quickly through places and I do a little sketch of something that's useful, but it's not the same type of work as when I've lived somewhere for a while. So when I was living in Beverly on campus at the Waring School, it was trees. And that has always been a theme for me, living there in the woods. Then when I moved to Provence, it was, well, there's everything. There's fields of lavender and sunflowers and poppies. And it's just what struck me in Provence, and I had never been there before graduating from college and moving there. I'd never been there before. Of course, an artist's paradise is, and what frustrated me too was the light was so clear. The colors were so saturated. It was so hard for me to sort of to grasp that. It was so hard for me to mix those colors to my satisfaction, because they were just incredible. And strangely enough, I found the same thing on Cape Ann, where the light is so crisp and saturated, and you really get a sense of the distance between yourself and whatever you're painting out there, because it's so clear. And it's not like that everywhere. So that was my biggest challenge. And love.
Well, you obviously overcame it, because I'm going to show a couple of paintings here from Provence. You have the irises, and I believe there's another early Provence picture that we're going to show as well. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say about that. The drapeau, would you like to comment at all on that painting?
I'll comment on that one. That was a view out my bedroom window in our house in Provence. And I did countless views out my window. I think I was still kind of influenced by what I was looking at during my college years. And that was a lot of Matisse. And Matisse, when he lived in Nice, did through his window scenes again and again and again, or he did, his breakfast table, or, what was right in the corner of a room there. And so I was influenced by that indoor outdoor thing there. And of course, the American flag, which my mother hung, of all people, on our house in Provence. On the other shutter, she had hung the French flag. I just felt, even though I loved being in Provence, I always missed being in the States. I always felt like the American girl in Provence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's fabulous. A beautiful photo. I'm excited that we can show it. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. You are certainly prolific as an artist, but you also cover many subject matters. And I have to compliment you. I love your website. I love the way it's organized. I really feel like, there's so much to look at. There's so much to choose from. I noticed that, you had a lot of different subject matters, gardens, architecture, obviously birds, trees, there's many ways to go. So I just wanted to find out more about even how do you decide when you're going to paint? Like, do you paint every day? How do you prepare or decide to go down like a new path? Just a little bit about your own process, and then maybe comment on any photos that are examples of that.
Sure. A lot of people ask me if I paint every day. The answer is no. And I actually appreciate the breaks in between. I feel that I need that. It's just like you can't exercise nonstop. You need to recoup, and you need to, kind of absorb what you're seeing and thinking about. And then you have this renewed energy. And for instance, now after we've sold our house, I've been so busy the last few months just taking care of everything else, getting ready for our trip. And I haven't actually sat down at the easel, but it doesn't bother me because I know that I'll have that energy when I come back, and it'll almost take me a few steps further more quickly by taking those breaks. So, but most of the time I paint because I know I sit down, I have a deadline, I have a certain number of paintings I need to produce for my galleries. And there's such a wealth of subject matter that interests me. And I have sketches and photos too that I can, refer back to, that I sit down and I start painting, and it's not hard to start.
And I'm going to show a few examples here of your different trees: sycamore, birches, and then also there's an example here of birds, Paris pigeons. Do you want to comment on the Paris pigeons? I thought that was that one that you thought was particularly of interest, of note.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, I didn't do too many paintings in this way, but I guess what drew me to them, and a lot of people say, why would you paint pigeons and who's going to buy a pigeon painting? And when I gave this piece to a gallery, they kind of looked at me funny. And but nevertheless, they sold even before it was hung. Somebody came in and said, I want to buy that painting. Now, that's not really the point. The point is that I guess I'm drawn by how much it symbolizes Paris in a way, or it symbolizes a lot of big cities, but for me, it was Paris. And then just the subtle monochromatic aspect to it, where, and then again, pigeons are like any other birds of great interest to me. There's something about birds ever since I was a kid that I've been drawn to. So it doesn't matter what birds.
Not such an easy subject matter either. It's not like they sit still while you do their portrait.
No. No, I have to admit, I did a lot of sketches and photographs, and those helped me with this particular painting.
I think your upbringing, sitting and watching all those beautiful parts of nature at the Waring School, that maybe helped you figure all that out early on, right?
Yes, absolutely. Sketching from life, never having a camera. My mother did not allow that we had cameras. She said, if you want to remember something, you draw it. And that helped me a lot.
So I always ask this question, and I love to get all the different responses to it. And it's really about outside influences. Any favorite either teachers or other artists, any work that was particularly inspiring to you, that kind of influences your work?
I would say that my greatest loves have been the Impressionists and the Fauvists, post-Impressionists, and more specifically Monet. Derain, who's a fauve, because he simplified things and the bright colors. And for me, that it speaks to me incredibly. And I always feel like I want to move more in that direction and have broader brush strokes. Whereas Monet had a lot of fine brush strokes, and I'm trying to move away from that. I think my early years, I was more along those lines. I got rid of all my small brushes. And then I also have also been drawn to Bonnard and to an American Hopper. And I think Hopper, not so much for his colors or technique in painting, but for the subject matter of being somebody looking out a window, through a window at different people. And that sort of aspect of feeling alone looking out. I think that's a theme.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're preaching to the choir, because I love Hopper and I agree. It's definitely a point of view that he's definitely communicating in his work. So, but that's interesting, and everybody approaches that a little bit differently. So I want to turn to another important topic for all artists, which is really about patrons. They're really the key to the long-term success for an artist in terms of at least, making living, but also getting, feedback and, getting excited about things. So tell us about the types of people, that you've enjoyed working with as collectors, and maybe show an example of a collection that was purchased or is sort of, in the works with a particular collector. Because with producing as much work as you have produced, Rokaya, you must have some collectors of your work.
Yes, I do. And some of them go way back from my high school years, have known me my whole life and have purposefully tried to select pieces from each period, if you will, and are just really faithful in that way. And then others that have more recently discovered me, either through Cape Ann, a local shows and venues, otherwise through a gallery, and they'll come and find me afterwards. They'll say, oh, I bought a piece years ago. Do you have any more along those lines? So they'll come back to me, and I really appreciate that. It's so nice to have old collectors and new collectors.
And there's a collection we're going to show, which is something you've already sold to a private collector. And there's a number of paintings in this, I think 5 paintings that work together, right?
Correct. They're all, yep.
Yeah, that's one of your landmarks, right? We really hadn't discussed that, but the triptych, the diptych, in this case, I'm not sure what I would call 5 paintings together. They're all different paintings in this case. But I think, how did that whole relationship start? Actually, you don't have to say who it is, but I'm kind of curious, like, did it start in a gallery? Did it start, from a show, or?
This particular patron connection?
Exactly, yeah.
It started, it's a very nice story. It started because a couple, and she had seen a little clipping of one of my paintings years ago, somewhere in an ad or magazine, and she had cut it out because she loved it so much and stuck it on her bulletin board at work, and not even knowing who the artist was. It happened to be one of my paintings that I had done in Tahiti, of a boat on the water, clouds and everything. And we met through a totally different venue. I think it might have been Cape Ann Plein Air, if I'm not mistaken. And she put it all together. She said, oh my God, you're that artist. I've had this clipping for years and years and years. And then it started this relationship. And then she and her husband bought, paintings over the years, many, many paintings. The photo that you'll be showing is there. It's not actually 5 paintings that I ever painted in conjunction, but they chose to buy them because they work so well together, and hang them together.
Yeah, that's great. That's a wonderful story. I'm so glad we got to the bottom of that. And that they found you. That's pretty awesome.
It was amazing. Amazing.
It is. Anyway, you're about to wrap up this sort of phase of living in Cape Ann. And of course, we really hope you're going to come back. Selfishly, I hope you come back. But I'd love to know what you would like to sort of take away from your Cape Ann experience. And you can also use, you can say what happened while you were here. And I think we should talk about that in terms of, some of the work that you feel kind of best, represents your time here. And then what artistically you're taking with you as you're leaving.
Well, Cape Ann taught me, painting here, really taught me about the sea. I had never painted seascapes before. I'd been living in the mountains in Provence, and it was always landscapes. And it was a struggle in the beginning. I had had little touches of it living in Marblehead with my parents here and there between Provence. And I had painted boats, but I never felt like that was my thing ever. And coming to Gloucester, it was inevitable. I painted also, I love painting the city of Gloucester, and that recalled the city of Forcalquier, where I used to live. And I think that I drew some of the colors from Provence and brought them into Gloucester. So there was a lot of Provence influence when I first came to Gloucester, but then I think it just found its own sort of path, and it ended up being water with single boats. And I think perhaps because it's kind of how I feel, I just feel like this is me looking out, just me alone looking out. And that's a common theme that I see now looking back.
Yeah, and I can see that. We're going to show Restless Waters, Folding the Sail, and Summer on the Ocean, which are all from, looks like they're all from about between 2016 and 2018. So pretty recent, like pretty deep, I would say pretty deep into your Cape Ann experience, considering that you came back here at 2008. So that's pretty exciting. And I think in terms of style, we also wanted to talk about a new way of looking at birds. This was the cormorant painting. So maybe speak to that, because that's kind of the, sort of the final, I guess, phase of Cape Ann in a sense.
Yeah. And that cormorant painting, and I call it, somebody actually suggested that I call it this, because I often have trouble titling my own paintings. It's very, very hard. They said, oh, those are like Gauguin's colors. So I call it cormorants à la Gauguin. So that was one of the last pieces I painted leaving Gloucester. And I felt that it was a transition for me. I felt much freer and looser than before. And the colors are bright. It might not be for everyone. I sold it pretty much fresh off the easel. And that made me feel great, because I felt, wow, I'm going in this other direction, and it's working. It's speaking to other people. That's, so important.
No, it's really vibrant. I mean, it feels like it's a very, one of our phenomenal sunsets, actually, when I'm looking at that particular painting. So I'm excited to be able to share that. So of course, the question of the moment, the $10,000 question, is really about this exciting journey that you're about to embark on. And I have to say that when I thought about interviewing you, and then I went to your website, and it said that starting in May, you were going to be selling your house and moving and, and going across the country, I was in a panic. I said, how can I interview Rokaya before she leaves? I didn't think we could do this from an RV. So anyway, I want to find out a little bit about what inspired this adventure and what you hope you're going to find artistically and personally. And then we're going to have to revisit this, in a couple of years and find out if any of this really came true.
Yeah, no, I hope you do, because I have not much of an idea of what's ahead of me. I know that there will be another transition in my work, not only because it's going to be different scenery, but because I plan to try out some different mediums as well. I want to go back to just simple drawing, sketchbooks every day, watercolors, pastels that I've always done in the past. But I also want to try out some caseines, which is a milk paint, one of the oldest types of paints in existence, really, and I've never tried them out before. But they're great because they're water-based and dry quickly, but they can have the look of it oils without all the mess. And so for traveling, it might be just perfect. So, but what inspired this trip? I would say there's a few reasons for me. One is probably just the desire to simplify my life, to simplify, just as much as I loved living in our home and beautiful garden in Gloucester, it was a lot of work and a lot of overhead. And I found over the years, things just got more and more complicated, and more of my time was spent doing other stuff and not painting. And I said to myself, I don't really need such a big house. I don't need such a big yard. I want to have more time, and it's expensive to live here too. So I just want to downsize and simplify, and at the same time, find another part of the country closer to family, because most of my immediate family is way far away from here, be closer to them, and find a place that inspires me and gets me out of my comfort zone and seeing different things and painting different things. It's always a good thing to change that up.
Well, that's a brave thing to do. Making a change proactively like that is always, I don't know. I believe in it too. I totally get it. I totally get it. It's great to be able to do it when you're ready. And sometimes you don't get that choice. So good for you. Sounds exciting, but please stay in touch with KPN. So this will be a great way for you to keep reflecting, on your experience here. So I guess we're about to wrap up. And before we do, we want everyone to have the benefit of finding you. It's going to be online for now, although is your work still in some galleries locally? I meant to ask you that. Are you?
It is. I have been with Arnold Gallery in Marblehead for the last 25 years. I'm still with him. And I have worked at Blue Heron Gallery in Wellfleet. I've been with him for 18 years or so. There's my website, Rokaya.com. On Facebook, you can friend me, or you can go to Rokaya Waring Art, and I'm on Instagram.
Well,
so
that's great. And it's going to be your world, for a while. And we're just going to have to track you that way. So thank you so much, Rokaya. We're going to wrap up this interview. And I just want to thank our sponsors and invite our viewers to look for us on local cable channel 12, 1623 Studios YouTube under the KPN ARTWaves playlist. Look out for our posts on Facebook and Twitter, and sign up for the C-Arts e-blast so that you can be the first to know when this fabulous interview comes to life. So again, thanks to our sponsors, thanks to you, Rokaya, and wishing you the very, very best on the journey ahead.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much.